Say hi to her.
Good afternoon. Those are records we found of Josh, 1959, and I think earlier. We'll play them more later. And we're ready to start, and you know that you all have a role, so get ready.
I listen to the wind of my soul. Where I'll end up, well, I think only God really knows. I sat upon the setting sun, but never, I never wanted water once. Never, ever, never. I listen to my words, but they fall far below. I let my music take me where my heart wants to go. I swam upon the devil's lake, but never, I'll never make the same mistake. Never, ever, never. I listen to the wind of my soul. I let my music take me where my heart wants to go. I listen to the wind of my soul. I let my music take me where my heart wants to go. I listen to the wind of my soul. I let my music take me where my heart wants to go.
Oh, it holds me. That mic is for the video. Can you all just hear me?
Yeah.
Do I need a mic? Just maybe over a little bit, but not in my face. Well, thank you all. Yeah, that's awesome, Kenny. Thank you all for coming to celebrate the life of our Joshua. Thank you for your wonderful support your words, your food, your cards, your emails, your hugs, and especially thank you for your love. As you might expect, we will celebrate with much singing and some jokes. Josh was both a deeply emotional man and a big kidder. So we will pay tribute to both sides of his spirit today and ask that you all join in on some of the singing that will veer off at the end into the big, beautiful, zany, joyful heart that was Josh. You know that when your spouse or your parent dies, especially at an older age, you get to see him or her in a whole new light. You get to see the truth about them and all that was there but obscured by the trees in your particular forest. You get to hear from a niece who tells you of a kindness he did for her when she was 5, and from a twin sister who has 83 years of opinion to share, and from young friends and old friends who saw your spouse in this or that way. Where's Alec? Okay, remember? You go back and look at pictures that remind you that your spouse or your parent was once virile and strong, gorgeous, and vibrant, and you had forgotten many of these former selves. It's as if the person becomes whole again, all the lost pieces crowding back in to reclaim their place, like so many hologram puzzle pieces, reassembling, just crowding in to create the whole of the person. And that is when the missing becomes intense. Uh-oh. For the past 13 days without you, Joshua, I am grateful for all that I have learned about you. These things I've learned explain a funny comment you made in the week before you died. We were walking slowly from the car to the door of our house. We were both holding each other up and creaking along. I started laughing out loud and said, "We are like two old people." And you said, Josh, quite confidently, "I am not old." It wasn't a protest, it was just I'm not old. I understand now. I had forgotten temporarily the whole of you. So here are some things I have now been blessed to revisit. One of my earliest memories of Josh, a dinner that he took me to in a quaint restaurant in the Rittenhouse section of Center City, Philadelphia. The restaurant was on a second floor and long gone now, and I don't remember its name. But I do remember this. Josh was wearing a very handsome houndstooth tweed jacket, tortoiseshell glasses, and I expected he would pull out a pipe after dinner. I didn't know then that he wouldn't go near a smoking thing. So while he was telling me that he was a court reporter, I was thinking, no, you are not. You are a famous novelist. His artistry was so apparent to me even then. What I also remember thinking that night, and this is true, was that it felt as though our souls were talking. That was how it felt. And it's a hard thing to describe, and my students would say that I'm being corny, but that sensation never left us. We cried at all the same things, the same 3 chords that evoked a sense of beauty or melancholy, the same touching moments in a movie, the same beauty and horrificness in life. We even loved watching MSNBC together, especially Rachel Maddow. A secret I am only now letting you all in on, since I let Josh take the brunt of our friends' criticisms that this obsession of his was not healthy. Sorry. Josh and I had our 30th wedding anniversary this past June, 2015. We went to the Mann Music Center to have dinner, see the Beach Boys with Brian Wilson. He could not get up the hill, but we made it, slowly. Of course, Josh was busy studying and performing opera throughout the 60s and the 70s, so he missed the musical revolution that defined my generation. But he was always open to new sounds and genres, and he loved this performance of the Beach Boys. Through his fresh encounter with the music that I had heard 1,000 times, I often gained a new appreciation, and this was the case for the Beach Boys. I thought they were a decent pop band with good vocals. He thought they were brilliant. He was right, but I had never heard their genius until that night. I loved that about him, his openness to new experiences, his desire to continually grow and learn. Wherever his children went, he wanted to go too. He had advice for all of them, and right or wrong, it was really just his desire to engage with them that drove him into the world of Karen's new aromatherapy business, for which he advised her that she needed to make much more product, even though she had not yet at the time one customer, but he knew it was going to blow up one day and she had to be prepared. Into the world of Michael's wonderful family, for which I know he advised Michael many times that he needed to save more money, while simultaneously offering risky stock tips. Into 11-year-old grandson Trevor's California Dance Company, from which Josh learned the stories, Trevor, of every other dancer and teacher involved in your company, and he lived amongst them as if he were not 3,000 miles away. Into Ben's jazz music, which Josh learned to love by sitting through years of lessons at the Clef Club in South Philly, befriending every cool cat that frequented that hotbed of famous jazz people. And into Ben's current Astro soul rock band that he said played too loud and hurt his ears, but he went into dark and dingy clubs to hear. And into Blake's high school drum career, pounding away downstairs at a volume that would have driven most parents mad. And into Blake's culinary adventures now, which he had already decided, without consulting Blake, should be a simple oyster house on the main line. Caden and Isabella, Brandon and Amber. I don't know if you ever heard too much advice from your grandfather, but it is important. Oh dear, sorry, coming. It is important to know that had he not been so worn out from all the medical issues he endured, he would have been driving you crazy too. He was delighted by your many talents and accomplishments in theater, in school. Where's Brandon? In music, in medicine, and college. Josh loved it all, and he wanted more. Coming. More life, more joy, more show business. Josh always joked, as you can see from the sign back there, that show business was his life. But it was really a metaphor for a joyful life. And I see now that as he became less and less able to be the performer, he wanted to hitch a ride to a joyful life on any of our stars, to keep growing and shining the light. It is why he was always on the under 30-year-olds to go to graduate school. Do what you love, keep growing and expanding. It was why he was totally behind my taking on a second job teaching at Eastern University, even though it took me away from him in what turned out to be the last weeks of his life. My regret, but not his. I know it was what he wanted me to do. Josh died as he lived, never giving up, always pushing forward to engage with people and to any extent that he could to engage with the work of living. He went to every family gathering and holiday party, even while he was in such pain that he needed us to help him walk. And he enjoyed it all. Let us be grateful for that, for it allowed him to die at home peacefully and on his own terms. Let us be grateful for his kind and loving spirit that listened so deeply to others. Let us all strive to embody this goodness and keep open and growing so that we too can give our own unique and uplifting light. Amen. Do you want me to say that? That's up to you. I needed it.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nell Anderson, a friend of the Lieberman family, and I'll be introducing this afternoon's speakers and the various members of this extremely musical family. First, I'd like to introduce Noli Intong, Michael's father-in-law, who will be singing I'll Be Seeing You.
This song is ugly and lovingly dedicated to our very, very dear friend and family kin, Josh Lieberman. Cathedral bells were calling, and our hearts sang on. Was it the spell of Paris, or the April dawn? Who knows if we shall meet again? But when the morning chimes ring sweet again, sweet our King. This heart of mine embraces all day through. In that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut tree, the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's warm and gay. I'll always think of you that way, and I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night
Next up is Brandon Beckley, Michael's stepson and Jennifer Lieberman's son, who will play a George Harrison song, While My Guitar Silently Weeps. Oh, what did I say? Oh, gently. I'm really not good at transcribing things, so, you know. But I'll be okay.
Testing, hello?
Definitely gently, not silently. Josh's 4 children, Michael, Karen, Ben, and Blake, will now come up individually to share their thoughts and feelings in word and in song, starting with Josh's eldest son, Michael.
Just words, no song. I asked my children, Caden and Isabella, what they thought I should write about my father. Caden said he was a funny man, amusing. Isabella said, he's the best man you've ever met. Caden asked, is that true? With little thought, the answer was a resounding yes. My father taught me how to be kind, patient, and loving. He showed me what a great father should do and what a great father shouldn't do. For both, I'm grateful. He showed me how to be a genuinely good person. Unfortunately, he gave me some things that I wished I didn't have. His awful sense of direction, his dance moves, and like Wendy said, his penchant for picking awful stocks. Yeah. So, when I was a child, my father had to put a lot of hours in for work. It was not a 9-to-5 job. He had an office in the house and had to say, he had an office in the house and had to say word for word the happenings of that day's courtroom events into a dictaphone. I remember how I would sit on the couch in the office and pester him until he gave in and finally played with me. Usually a catch outside, a bike ride around the neighborhood, or shoot some baskets on the driveway. But more often than not, he took the time to entertain me. That said, when he wasn't working, he entertained a lot. We played tennis together, we went deep sea fishing a couple of times, we went to Phillies, Sixers, and Flyers games, and to one half of an Eagles game. It was cold and they were losing. So. When I played sports as a child, he always encouraged me. When I played tennis, he said, bend at the knees, bend at the knees. That's what he did. When I played baseball, it was elbows up, elbows up. When I attended high school, my father took me and my friends, Stephen and Pat, to school pretty often. It wasn't until I wrote these words that I realized that he was going out of his way to take us. It was in the opposite direction of where he was going, which was Philadelphia. I didn't realize it because he never said a word. He never complained. That's what a great father does. Towards the end of high school, my mother and father separated. Eventually, I was introduced to Wendy. Our first meeting was at our apartment in Philadelphia. She made me my favorite meal at the time, which was lasagna. Then she pulled out her guitar, and she and my father began to sing John Denver type songs. I was like, oh my God, this is weird. My father likes opera. Well, I learned quickly that he liked more than opera, and I saw that he loved Wendy. I quickly learned why. Wendy was, and still is, as kind and as thoughtful as my father. They were truly meant to be together. I was extremely happy when my father asked me to be the best man at his wedding. Many years later, I found the person I was meant to be with in Jennifer. Not only did I marry her, but I was joining her family, which included my now beautiful stepchildren, Amber and Brandon. I was also lucky enough to be able to return the favor to my father and ask him to be my best man along with my friend Chris Smith. It meant a lot to me. When he gave my toast at the wedding reception, he called me a mensch. I learned how to be one from him, the top mensch. My father was truly my best man. He was a funny man, amusing, the best man I've ever met.
Why would I need that? I am sitting in the hallway next to the wall just behind the door. Mom is in the kitchen making dinner. That means it is nearly time for you to come home. I am 3 years old. I sit in anticipation for the apartment door to open. The key turns, entering your pant leg and swinging briefcase. Head tilted upward, I see you slowly turn and close the door. My heart is flooded with joy and a sense of peace at your arrival. You may wonder how it is possible to recall with vivid detail this feeling from so long ago, young age. I will tell you. Because it is the identical feeling I have felt for 54 years each time I saw or heard my father's voice. He embodied kindness, gentleness, encouragement, hope, acceptance,
perseverance, wisdom, and love. And let's not forget humor with abandon. He had the ability to make each and every person, including strangers, feel special, especially waitresses. My childhood friend Sherry recently said, when he looked at you with those eyes, it was like he could really see you. He saw past exteriors to truths within. He vacillated between solitude and being the life of the party. My father had an internal strength that I hope I will internalize. In death, he parted the way he lived his life, independently, simply, and in peace. I would like to end by offering you a quote from my father's twin, Aunt Phyllis. "Nobody's perfect, but my brother was."
Afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing? Don't lie. Just wanted to thank everyone for coming. All of your support, your texts, your calls, your food, like my mom said, has really been special. Makes us feel good. So I see a lot of familiar faces here, and some new ones too. All in all, you're not a bad-looking crowd. But as my dad would often say in jest, not as good-looking as me. I'm extremely grateful for the 28 years I got to spend with my dad, the past 16 years of which most doctors would say were on borrowed time. I'm grateful for the strength and the positivity he possessed throughout those 16 years, which were rife with medical tribulations. His spirit then reminds me to be strong now. I remember back in the year 2000 being by his bedside at Lankenau Hospital soon after he came out of one of his heart surgeries. He looked up at us with his hair a mess and his eyes half shut. And he said in a whisper, "The doc and I were out dancing all night." You should have seen me. That was my dad, and that was his spirit. Through a joke, a dance, a silly smile, or a song, he always knew how to comfort his loved ones during difficult times and would constantly remind all of us, everyone here, that life's good, baby. One of his greatest joys, as you may well know, was music, and he loved to hear us play. Old Man by Neil Young was one of his favorites, and he'd often ask me to play it for him. So without further ado, and to pay heed to one last request, here we go, Dad. Here we go, Mom.
I may or may not harm it on.
All right. bars, look in your eyes, run around the same old town. Doesn't mean that much to me, to mean that much to you. I've been first and last, look at how the time goes past, and I'm all alone at last, rolling up to you. Oh man, take a look at my life, I'm a lot like you. I need someone to love me the whole day through. I'm one look in your eyes and I can tell that's true. Oh man, look at my eyes, I'm a lot like you were. Oh man, look at my life, I'm a lot like you were.
Before I read what I'd like to share with you, I just want to say how grateful we all are for all of you. Really, in some ways, I don't feel like he's gone at all, 'cause he's here with all of us. Father, beautiful Father, dancing with stardust, riding cosmic winds, and a million glinting fractures, sparkling in the night sky. The blue of your eyes twinkle, looking down at me and dancing in the leaves, the soft rustling in wisps of winter wind, biting yet gentle, the softness of your touch, its lingering sensation, and the bite of your absence. Those eyes, deep blue wells of love, of filial adoration. Sì, io sono il tuo caro figlio per sempre. Father, beautiful Father, who taught me patience and joy, and right from wrong, who brought music to my world, who found me, my mother among the millions, and me, and Blake, and Karen and Michael and their children, who called into being against impossible odds, us, this family so loved. You are so loved, Dad, and I am so loved, so thankful to be so loved. It is a gratitude that has guided me and that will continue to guide me throughout the rest of my life. 3 edicts to live by. Grab the world by the balls. Treat all with respect and kindness. Laugh and remember that life is good. You are gone, but life is good. Our lives are good, not in spite of your death, but because of your life. Because you welcome those of true hearts with kindness, with jokes, with playfulness, with silliness. Because you instill in those around you the gentleness that resides within. You once told me that I have your artistry, and I didn't know what that truly meant until you finally shared with us the records of your youth. Your artistry, Dad, my God, such beauty. I knew, but I did not understand until then. And then, as now, I know that it's just the smallest glimpse. How I'd love to sit and listen to Domingo with you right now. So now I'm going to ask Mom and Blake and Kenny, my friend Rich, to come and join me. Dad always loved to hear us play, as every single person here knows. This is a song I wrote in high school called Southern Winds, and it was always his favorite. You guys ready?
Sure.
Oh, I went sailing to a place far from here. Please don't come searching for me, don't even call near. Gotta follow my map, going nowhere. It's taken me, but I'm bound to find out soon enough, just so long as I'm free. I'm gonna follow the southern winds all around the globe. I'm gonna follow the southern winds until I find my city of gold. The pirates will board our ship now, number 22. Catch me if you can, I say, but who's hunting who? The slavery has lost its flair. Tell me, would you really care if push came to shove? I'm gonna follow the southern winds all around the globe. I'm gonna follow the southern winds until I find my city of oh, Captain with beard of silver, and the leg on the right. He had it on there to tell me, but his crew wanted to fight. So I was thrown overboard to the high sea. But that's okay with me, well, at least I got free. I'm gonna follow the southern wind all around the globe. He's gonna follow
As some of you may already know, Josh was quite taken with Ben's partner, Emily Rubin. After she shares her tribute to Josh right now, you will understand why.
Hello. Just give you a little story behind the silliness that I'm about to share with you. So the first time I ever heard Josh sing, about a year and a half ago, we were in the car on the way home from brunch, and he sang me a beautiful opera or aria, and I was informed that I would now owe him $91 in pennies, which I didn't have at the time, so he kept badgering me for it. And about a month, maybe two later, I finally asked him if he'd be willing to trade. And he said yes, but I was too shy to sing for him, but I offered to write him a rap. Ben and I had been sort of rap battling at the time, and he said yes, but on the terms that it was in Yiddish. So I did what I could. My vocabulary is not great, but yeah, this rap is entitled Freilach, which is Yiddish for joy, and I find that very fitting because he personally brought me amazing amounts of joy, and I'm sure all of you as well. So this is Freilach. Don't be a schmendrick. Don't be a nincompoop. Come get chickered with me, and I'll get chickered with you. Oy vey is mia. There ain't no chicksas here. Where's your chutzpah, dear? 'Cause there ain't room for no fear. Genug shine. That's enough, I say. I got the schvilkies. A little nervous today. I'm a Reuben. But I got that Engelberg gene, a Shayna Madel. The finest beauty you've seen. Oy gewalt. I gotta give it to Jay Leaves, a fly mishpacha. I'm sheppin' nachas indeed. The leaves can be a schlumpadick as tchotchkes all around. To all the goyim and the yit, I hope you like my sound. I got the shtick perfected. My tuch is protected. I ain't verklempt, just a little affected.
Well, I wouldn't want to be the person to go after this. But it will actually be my husband who comes up next. So we're going to hear now from a few of Josh's dear friends, starting with Manuel.
Good afternoon. As all of you know by now, Josh was an opera tenor. Some of you might also know that his email address was iltenore1, number 1. In thinking of what to say today, how to celebrate his life, it hit me in the shower, where I do my best thinking, that I should write an opera about him. Don't worry, I don't have any musical talent, so I'm not going to sing. And it is not a full libretto or an opera, only a synopsis. The title of the opera, as you may have guessed, is Il Primo Tenore, the first tenor. Of course, it's an Italian grand opera. There are 3 acts. Every opera has an overture, so I'm taking the liberty of including all the songs that have preceded me as part of the overture. including that Yiddish hip hop. That was sort of Turandot moving into In the Heights, where he met Sophie Tucker, the last of the hot red mamas. I swear, it's all very fitting for Josh. Act 1, the first act in an opera, introduces a hero, Josh, and begins to describe the hero's motivation, his personality, his inner self. It opens at the Jersey Shore about 32 or 33 years ago. Wendy and my wife Nell were work colleagues and best friends. Soon after I started going out with Nell, I met Wendy. That day, while vacationing at Long Beach Island with my two sons from my first marriage, Manny and Alex, 12 and 10 at the time, Nell told me that Wendy was coming to spend the day with someone she had just met, Josh. They came, I met him, and then proceeded to ignore him for the rest of the day. It was not an auspicious beginning for a friendship. Circumstances are kind of hazy to me now, except that I remember I was reading a very interesting book and I was deeply engrossed in the book. No excuse. Josh would sometimes tease me about my very unfriendly behavior that day. What I remember next is that Josh and my two sons went out to play baseball. And my sons came back really excited because Josh had taught them some baseball skills. I thought, he can't be that bad if he likes baseball so much. Later, I learned that as a young man, he had been scouted by a baseball team and had been offered a minor league contract. Okay, so I thought, he's a little interesting. Sometimes later, I learned that he was an opera singer. Wow, I love opera, but I never met a real opera singer. This guy held some promise. Then I learned that he played tennis. That kind of clinched it for me, since I also played tennis. So I guess that I really talked to him the next time we got together with Wendy and him, one of many, many times over the years. I found out very quickly that I really liked Josh. It wasn't just our shared love for baseball, opera, tennis, and old movies. He really liked the Marx Brothers. Wonder why? He was real, devoid of airs or artifice, generous, caring, funny, really funny, artistic, theatrical, and genuine. And did I say funny? Josh was a real character. I haven't met many like him since, and don't think that I ever will. Nell and I were planning to get married a few months after that beach day, and we asked Wendy and Josh if they would sing at our wedding. Both of them readily agreed and sang two beautiful songs, one of them a John Denver song, participating in a very meaningful manner in our joyous occasion. Soon after, it was Wendy and Josh's time to get married. They didn't ask us to sing at their wedding. We can't sing. But I danced with Josh at his wedding. And we had a lot of fun. We had a great time. He and I share much in common, aside from all the sports and cultural interests. Both of us have been married previously. Each of us had 2 children from our first marriages. And we were both embarking on a second marriage and contemplating the strong likelihood of more children. And it was to be a new journey for both of us. Act 2. Second act in an opera introduces a conflict or a challenge for the hero to address. This act starts at a campground, but it moves back and forth to many other sites. Our home, their home, Disney World, the Academy of Music, Lankeno Hospital, the Amalfi Coast. Nell and I had one daughter, Maya. Wendy and Josh had Ben and Blake. The 3 children, separated by only a few months, grew up together, sharing playgroup, birthdays, vacations, holidays, Noche Buenas. Noche Buena is the Christmas Eve dinner, Cuban style, and camping trips. Camping trips were fun. Wendy was a veteran camper, but I don't think that Josh had ever been camping before. He was a city boy, Brooklyn boy. Camping was not in his blood, but he was willing to try it out, since Wendy and the boys really wanted to do it. On the first trip, after the first night in his tent, he complained that his back hurt too much. He didn't think that he could last another day in the campground. He was talking about going to a motel. He told me that Wendy and him had bought air mattresses, but they hadn't helped a bit. I asked him to show me the mattresses, and when he did and he showed them to me, I asked him, "Did you inflate them?" "Oops," he replied. "I didn't know you were supposed to inflate." Next night, he and Wendy slept much better. They didn't go to a motel. On one of these trips, the three children decided that they were going to tie Josh to the folding chair where he was sitting and proceeded to do that with whatever rope, kerchiefs, and belts they could find. That became a favorite family activity. Not relegated to our camping trips. They would do it when we would get together at one of our homes. Josh indulged him all the time, and he would very theatrically always pull a great Houdini escape. Time goes fast during Act 2, and it spans 20 or 25 years. Josh was a real family man. He loved Wendy, he loved his children, Karen and Michael and Ben and Blake, his grandchildren, Trevor and Caden and Isabella, and his step-grandchildren, Amber and Brandon. Family time was really important to him, and he and Wendy made sure that they would make time for everyone in the extended family. Over those years, we shared many joys and tribulations of life. For Josh, the joys were often interrupted by the health concern. He started having serious problems about 16 years ago. This was his big challenge. He had heart surgery and almost died. He was faced with his own mortality at that time. But he refused to go backstage. He needed more time on the big stage. He wanted more time with Wendy, with the children and grandchildren and the rest of the family. He wanted to experience more life and sing more arias. And he made it through that challenge, but with a compromised heart that kept him in and out of hospital. He complained, oh yes, he complained, but he would not complain for long. As soon as he recovered, he was out there bringing joy to others and enjoying life himself. Over the years, he spent a lot of time at Lankenau Hospital, where he would always sing for his nurses. They didn't have many patients like this wild and crazy guy, asking them to give him a quarter every time he sang a song for them. I would tease him that the hospital was going to name a wing after him, given his long-time support. He would just laugh, hoping that he would not have to go to the hospital again, but deep down knowing that his health was failing him, and it was likely that he would have other hospital stays. In spite of his failing health, we had two memorable trips to Italy, a country that he loved dearly. I'm sure that one of his Jewish ancestors was Italian. In Italy, Josh connected with his opera roots. He spoke Italian, he sang in restaurants, in piazzas, in grocery stores, and he felt renewed in body and spirit. He was full of life, and his exuberance was contagious. Josh had an impish sense of humor, always looking for an opening in the conversation. Even if there was not an opening, he would find one. To tell a joke, make a humorous connection, poke fun at something or someone, he had few filters in place. You understand what I mean by filters. Filtering is his brain. We all have them. They prevent us from saying things we shouldn't say or doing things we shouldn't do. But Josh didn't have many of those filters. He was what in psychoanalytic terms would be called very primary process. He acted spontaneously and blurted things out without thinking. Sometimes he got in trouble, I know. But this characteristic was part of his essence. In Spain, they call this tener duende. This is not an easy term to translate. sure my friend Kenny would agree. Duende means elf, a magic creature in Spanish mythology. And tener duende can be loosely translated as having soul, a heightened state of emotion, expression, and authenticity. The best flamenco musicians and the best bullfighters in Spain have duende. Josh had duende. Well, now we come to the last act in the opera, Act 3. As you know, the hero always dies in the third act of a grand opera. This is sad, but it gives a hero a chance to sing another aria. So Josh would have liked that. This act starts with another Anderson Gutierrez family vacation story. 2 summers ago, we were vacationing in St. Michael's on the eastern shore of Maryland. My son Alex, same one who was so excited by Josh's baseball prowess in Act 1, his wife and his 2 daughters, 12 and 10 years old, were with Nell and me. Josh and Wendy came to visit for a couple of days. As we did often when the 2 families would get together, we played charades after dinner. The younger of the 2 girls, Ashley, had just met Josh, first time. And she had marveled all day. She kept looking at him. This very charismatic old guy, singing songs, telling jokes and funny stories. When the time came for playing charades, she whispered to her parents, "I want to be on Josh's team." Josh was on point that evening. It was a funny, rollicking time that neither Ashley nor anyone else has forgotten or will ever forget. So now the scene is New Year's Eve, 2015. After an early dinner at a jazz club, we're all sitting at our home. Josh is ailing, he could barely walk. But he's talking about his desire to go back to Italy one more time, to visit Lucca in Tuscany, the home of Puccini. This was a dream that kept him going. Alas, it was not to happen, it was not to be. He died peacefully at home 2 weeks later. To his family and friends, he left a legacy of love, of joy, of music, of an indomitable spirit and a zest for life. We will always remember you, Josh. Josh, I have a final request. I want you to save me a balcony seat on that grand opera stage where you now reside. Because, Josh, I want to be on your team. Adieu, caro amigo. Adieu.
So, I'd like to invite Fran Gerstein to come and pay her tribute to Josh.
It stings to go last because everyone stole my jokes, and Josh would have felt the same way, I think. So a lot of these jokes were already told, so I'm going to do my best. So one of the things I want to say is it's very hard to talk about Josh Lieberman without the help of the Yiddish language, as Emily has pointed out. Because Josh was, of course, a mensch, but he also was a kibitzer, and he had a shtick. In fact, he had many, many shticks. So anyone who ever met Josh probably heard him say, "Do you want to hear me sing?" And if you said yes, he'd let you know, that'll be 5 cents. I got the cheaper, by the way. You had to pay 91, 25, I got 5 cents. So there are many people here today who will be sad that Josh will not sing at their wedding, except maybe in spirit, and I think a lot of people were looking forward to that. Josh Lieberman was not a product of his upbringing. He had been born in Brooklyn, and he had immigrant parents, and he was from an Orthodox home. But he was a man who changed with the times, and he always seemed younger. He was always reinventing himself and immersing himself in contemporary, whatever was contemporary, and he was surrounded by young people, and you really could never tell the difference between him and them, even if they were really little. He would just fit right in. Josh was a very passionate person. He had many opinions, and when he had a strong opinion about anything, he'd raise his voice and he'd begin to yell a little. So as he yelled, his hands would shake. And this is when you know Josh was really on. Some of this passion was lost on those who it was aimed at, like those Republicans on TV, who don't know how much Josh enjoyed yelling, "Liars! You're all liars!" Josh was young at heart. No matter how dire things seemed, he was always kibitzing. I'd visit him at Lankenau Hospital for a host of illnesses, and I could always tell I was approaching his hospital room because I'd hear laughter. Whether it was someone there to take his blood or a candy striper, good luck to her, on her first day. Waitresses, candy stripers, you know, these were the people that were in big trouble if Josh was around. And he'd always smile, and he'd always say, you know, he'd complain about whatever was going on for about a millisecond, and then he'd say, well, what do you expect? And he'd say, what's new, Francesca? He always called me Francesca. That is not my name. My name is, it's not that far away, it's Francine. So Josh won my heart when it was clear that he was always going to be on my side, no matter what. So I'd be having a fight with Stuart, my husband, or relating any kind of anecdote about a conflict I'd had with anyone, and he would always say, Fran, you're absolutely right. Even when I was totally wrong, he would say, you're absolutely right. And he'd always say, you gotta stick up for yourself, Fran. So, you know, I loved him for that. He always had my back. Josh had a wonderful way of getting information out of you. He always prefaced his intrusive questions with, Francesca, can I ask you something personal? Then you knew you'd be divulging your income or where you had hidden the family jewels. Josh was a braggart, never about himself, but always about his family. He'd come over and say, Francesca, did you hear the news? And I'd think something big was going on. But then with a huge smile pasted on his face, he'd tell me about some kind of musical contest one of his kids or grandchildren were in, or something Wendy did at work that day. Josh called me Francesca. He had a belief that we would all be better off if we were Italian. Or at least if we all lived in Italy. One of the most special times of my life was going to Italy with Wendy and Josh. We also went to New Mexico, but that was awesome too. But Italy was super special. Josh seemed to become fluent in Italian the moment he stepped off the plane. And the Italians responded to him as if he were their compatriot. He claimed he learned Italian from singing opera, but my guess is that he kind of faked it, and that he was just so damn charming, everyone kind of went along with it, you know, and we didn't know what they were saying because we didn't know Italian. I'm sure he did have some ear for language because it goes along with musical talents from what I've heard. So Josh had certain jokes, and he told some of them repeatedly, and one of them seems particularly apropos today. There's these two guys and their best friends, A.B. and Sammy. Sammy dies, and he goes to heaven, and one night he comes to A.B. in his sleep. A.B. asks him, Sammy, is there baseball in heaven? Sammy answers, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is there's baseball in heaven. The bad news is you're pitching Tuesday. So I think we all know what Josh is doing today, and good luck. I don't know what to say for baseball. And I also just really want to thank the Lieberman family from the bottom of my heart for their generous idea of donating, you know, money in Josh's memory to our son Daniel's fund. It's just, I'm so, you know, I could get all, what's the word? Verklempt. Thank you. Could get off verklempt, but I'm not going to. So thank you very much.
Okay, so Wendy has told me that there are a few people who have asked to say a few words, and I'm going to call them up now, starting with Peter Bingham? Bingham. Sorry, Peter Bingham. Is Peter here? Yeah.
Thanks, Wendy. Thanks, Ben and Blake and Karen and Michael for gathering us here. Earlier this week, we were at dinner, my sons and some of my sons and my wife Dana, and we were talking about how can it be that a shark can get the scent of a drop of blood in the water 6 miles away. Can they really do that? I thought this was just the kind of conversation that I would love to have with Josh. I would love to have it today. I'd love to have it sometime in the future. He was such a wonderful conversationalist. And in times in Ocean City and Cape May and up in Vermont and in Wynwood, Dana and Wendy and Josh and I would have these great conversations, and he would always bring his humor and his curiosity and his kindness into those conversations, and sometimes a song, as you've heard, it would be in there. And it was about 20 years ago that my oldest son came home after an after-school play date and said he'd been over, he'd met Ben and his brother Blake and had a wonderful time, and their parents, you are really going to love their parents. And boy, was that boy right. Sometime after that, hearing Josh sing, I think, was part of what gave me the courage to decide I could try that. And Josh gave me some pointers along the way, how to get my voice ready or get the right note and find my pitch. He said, you don't want to sing out of your range, you want to find your range. What a wonderful journey that is. One of the things, of course, about being with Josh that everyone has heard today is how funny he was. And so I think about what would he say in this conversation about the shark and the drop of blood. He said, why is this person swimming in the water and they're bleeding? Do they know they're bleeding? So, why do they do that? These people are a burden on society. I think we ought to tax them. That's 25 cents. I'm going to collect 25 cents. He made a lot of money. We've heard about that today. So that was something that he offered, and his curiosity. He wanted to know about things, and if it was about this thing with the shark and the drop of blood, who was that? Who was bleeding in there? Why do people do these things? And he was interested in nature. Say, I know that hunters use their sense of smell to find their prey, but how does that work underwater? That's what I'm thinking he would ask. So his curiosity was kind of something that was about his generosity, because he was always curious about you, about me. He wanted to know what was going on, and he asked. And they say that charm, I've heard it said, is a quality of a person really taking an interest in other people. And Josh had that big time. And his kindness that he brought to every conversation. Boy, that person swimming out there, they need some help. Or maybe the good Democrats will get together and make a social program so this kind of thing doesn't happen, somebody out there bleeding in the water. He, after all, wasn't a liberal Democrat just because he was a Jewish boy from New York. He was that way because he has had a kind heart. The Saturday before he died, I had the impulse to call Josh, and that's unusual. I don't usually just check in on Josh, and I counted him as a close friend, the kind of friend who taught me to say when we parted, I love you guys. And I didn't end up calling him. And maybe, I don't know, there was a moment where I felt him I was up in Vermont, he was in Wynwood. I could feel him here on the planet, this person with his humor and his curiosity and his kindness. And that was enough reassurance, I guess, for me to end up not making the call, though now, of course, I wish I had. He was a blessing. And I recently learned that the word blessing has to do with blood, a wound that bleeds. And I am so grateful for you, his family here, both bringing us together and supporting this man who was a blessing to all of us. I thank you. And I love you guys.
So this is the scoop. We're running really late. Wendy has asked me to ask those of you who would like to say a few words to, instead of saying them out loud now, to post them on the website. And we're sorry that there isn't time for you to do that now. I'd like to instead call up, Becky. So I know who I'm calling. Becky's going to lead us in a call and response prayer. Thank you.
Hello. So I grew up two stores down from the Liebermans for 20 years. So as you can imagine, I owe Josh a lot of money. So I'm going to say my line, and then you guys say, "We remember Josh." In the rising of the sun and in its going down. We remember Josh. In the glowing of the wind and in its chill of winter. We remember Josh. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring. We remember Josh. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer. We remember Josh. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn. We remember Josh. In the beginning of the year and when it ends. We remember Josh. When we are weary and in need of strength. We remember Josh. When we are lost and sick at heart. We remember Josh. When we have joys we yearn to share. We remember Josh. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us, as we remember Josh.
Okay, so Kenny and Wendy are going to sing Mother Nature's Son. And Wendy asked me to share with you that she didn't actually know this song, that it came into her mind the day that Josh died. We're taking this as a sign from Josh, and we invite you to join in with your voices and with the instruments that are being passed around now.
Now, you know, Josh was from Brooklyn, and so we changed one lyric. We're going to go from country boy to city boy.
Okay.
And by the way, if you feel like standing up when we get to the chorus, go for it.
You know, this is by Paul McCartney, but Josh, in true tradition, likes the John Denver version better. So that's the version we're going to for the strong man. Okay. Born a poor young city boy, Mother Nature's son. All day long I'm singing songs for everyone. Sit beside a mountain stream, hear a water's rise. Listen to the
she fly. Here we go. Find me in my fields of grass, Mother Nature's son. Swaying daisies sing a happy song beneath the sun. Just the kazoos. Top of the verse. Born a poor young city boy, Mother Nature's son. All day long I'm singing songs for everyone. No voices, just kazoos. Mother Nature's son.
So, there's food
And drinks.
and drinks, light fare. Stick around so we can visit.